For a city as rich as San Francisco, it's been quite unbelievable to see the extreme poverty of those experiencing homelessness on the streets. If you walk around downtown, tents, makeshift cardboard beds, and human feces can be seen littering the sidewalks. In fact, in 2018, a UN official visited San Francisco on a world tour examining housing conditions. She was shocked by what she saw. Her official report concluded that the city's treatment of unhoused people constitutes a cruel and inhuman treatment and is a violation of multiple human rights, including the right to life, housing, health, water, and sanitation. The number of homeless in San Francisco has only grown since then, to more than 8,000 people, most of whom sleep on the streets, not in shelters. And San Francisco is pretty typical of a major American city these days, especially on the West Coast. 10 cities filled with poverty-stricken people have sprouted up from San Diego to Seattle. As of January 2020, California alone had about 151,000 homeless people, and that number is likely way higher. As you can imagine, getting an actual accurate count of homeless people is rather difficult. Regardless of the numbers though, there are many contributors to the problem. For example, the horrors of childhood trauma, mental illness, and chronic drug abuse surely add to the likelihood that someone lives on the streets. But there is another thing, one that many blame for the cause of the crisis, and that's that housing has gotten way too scarce and way too expensive. A few years ago, a team of economists at Zillow found that once cities cross a threshold where the typical resident must spend more than 1/3 of their income on housing, homelessness begins to spike, and rapidly. When incomes don't keep pace with the cost of rent, a cascade effect ripples through the housing market. High-income folks start renting places that middle-income folks used to rent. Middle-income people start renting places that low-income folks used to rent. And low-income folks? Well, they're left scrambling. Homelessness wasn't always this bad. In the 1970s, there was an adequate supply of affordable units for every low-income household that needed one, and we really didn't have any homelessness. But just 10 years later, by the 1980s, homelessness emerged as a chronic issue. There were many factors, including the federal government deciding to slash the budget for affordable housing. Also by then, the California state government had significantly cut taxes and gutted social programs, including 4 state-funded mental institutions, resulting in thousands of people with mental illnesses and other difficulties struggling to make it on their own. But once again, the core reason for the crisis boils down to supply and demand for housing. As regions like the San Francisco Bay Area became magnets for highly paid professionals in the computer-driven economy, they failed to build enough new units to keep up with demand. A 2016 study by McKinsey's Global Institute estimated that California needs 3.5 million new housing units by 2025 to deal with its chronic housing shortage. However, new housing construction has only slowed since 2016, and this is despite Governor Gavin Newsom's campaign promise to lead an effort to produce those 3.5 million units. And even before the pandemic brought havoc on the construction business, California was constructing only 100,000 new homes per year, way below the minimum 180,000 per year that analysts say the state desperately needed. Part of the problem is that politics of building a new house in California is a mess. Homeowners fear new high-rises will blight neighborhoods and damage their home values. Existing renters fear development will cause more gentrification and displace them. Zoning and various regulations make it hard to build new housing. Many advocates say that California needs some kind of new rent control program, but the city of San Francisco passed a rent control law back in 1994, which helped keep existing renters from getting displaced, but only exacerbated the deeper problem of a rental scarcity. The 1994 law, which exacerbated rental control to small, multifamily dwellings, convinced a large number of San Francisco landlords to take their rentals off the market by doing things such as selling their units as condos or bulldozing them and building new ones because the law didn't apply to new construction. In fact, research found that of all the properties that fell under the new rent control law, there was a 15% decline in overall rental supply and a 25% decline of rent-controlled supply in the years that followed. The results of all this was obscenely high rent and property prices, combined with stagnating wages for huge swaths of low-income jobs and a lack of political will for spending substantially more on subsidized housing. It's easy to see why a large population of people have been doubling up, living with their parents, moving to the city's increasingly expensive outskirts, and being pushed to the streets. Last year, Californians of all political stripes ranked homelessness as the biggest single issue they wanted the state to tackle. With political groundswell, legal interventions, and the Biden administration providing billions of federal dollars for the cause, California politicians are finally trying to do something big to help people who are unhoused and housing insecure. And Governor Newsom recently announced a $12 billion plan promising to provide 65,000 people with housing placements, more than 300,000 people with housing stability, and create 46,000 new housing units. The initiative builds on programs implemented during the pandemic that converted hotels and other buildings into housing for the homeless. As for San Francisco, Mayor London Breed, following a city ballot initiative that authorized taxing big companies and using the funds to help homeless, wants the city to spend more than $1 billion on the problem over the next 2 years. These programs will hopefully go a long way towards addressing the problem. But as long as California fails to address one of the root causes, a chronic shortage of affordable housing and an ongoing failure to significantly ramp up new construction, the state's homeless problem will just continue getting worse. Now, if you have any interest in the Ukraine war and want to know what 2023 has in store for it, click this video.